It's this invisible force. It runs literally everything, from your morning coffee order all the way up to global finance. We almost never think about it. We just take it for granted, right? But what if it just disappeared? That's the huge what if we're tackling today. So let's just dive right in. What if the internet, and I mean all of it, just blinked out of existence for 48 hours? Okay, so the first few minutes, it wouldn't feel like the end of the world. Honestly, it would just be annoying, right? You'd probably do exactly what I do. Check your phone, maybe go kick the router. You think, just a little glitch. It'll be back any second. But it wouldn't. And that feeling, that little flicker of annoyance, would very, very quickly turn into something much, much worse. This is when the world begins what you could call the Great Disconnection. I mean, instantly. The digital world we all live in, it's just gone. Poof. Google, YouTube, Facebook, all dark. Your digital payments? Not happening. That logistics software that keeps our stores stocked? Frozen solid. And all that remote communication we rely on? Slack, WhatsApp, you name it, it's all just silent. And right there, that's the core problem, isn't it? Our entire modern world is built for speed, for instant information. And suddenly it's slow, it's blind, and it's totally uncertain. Think about it. Air traffic control, they'd have to go back to old school radio protocols from decades ago. Emergency services would be in a nightmare scenario, just scrambling to coordinate without the networks they depend on every single second. So that initial shock is one thing, but how does this problem cascade? How does it ripple out? Well, as we get into the first full day, you start to see how society itself just grinds to a halt. And what's just wild is the speed of this collapse. What starts as a simple glitch, well, that turns into full-blown panic in just 1 hour. 6 hours in, critical infrastructure starts to buckle. And by the 24-hour mark, the entire global economy is basically paralyzed. And the financial cost? I mean, it's just mind-boggling. The estimates are that a global outage like this would cost over $10 billion an hour. Let that sink in. Per hour. So after just 48 hours, you're looking at almost $250 billion in damage. Wow. And this is really where you see the domino effect. It's all about how interconnected everything is. The financial markets just stop. ATMs are useless because they can't connect to the bank. Global trade freezes up because, hey, no one can track anything. And then you have hospitals, right? They're facing a massive crisis because all those patient records are in the cloud. It is literally a global-scale domino effect. But okay, this is about more than just money and machines, right? The real story here is the impact it would have on us, on people. So let's talk about the psychological side of this, the human system crash. And this is where things get really fascinating because it's a total paradox. On one side, you've got the shock, the panic, total disorientation, a complete loss of information, which, just breeds fear and paranoia. But on the other side, something really unexpected happens. There's this stillness. People might actually start having real conversations. You might see people reading physical books again. It's like this forced, deeply uncomfortable digital detox for the entire planet. So with no social media, no news websites, where does everyone turn? Well, they'd go back to the old guard, right? Radio, broadcast TV, actual print newspapers. They would suddenly become the most vital sources of information on Earth. The great irony, of course, is that even a lot of those systems rely on the internet to get their stories out. All right, so as we start getting close to that 48-hour mark, the strain on society is reaching a breaking point. This is where we're pushed right to the very brink of chaos. I mean, think about it. By this point, supply chains are shattered. Supermarket shelves are getting bare. Public services are starting to fail. This is the moment where governments really have no choice. They'd have to declare states of emergency just to keep some kind of order. And then you have this absolutely terrifying question that every single world leader is asking themselves. Is this just a freak technical failure, a once-in-a-civilization kind of glitch? Or is this a coordinated attack? Is this the start of a new kind of world war, one that began without a single shot fired? Because when you have no information, what fills that vacuum? Suspicion, paranoia. And in the world we live in, a world of constant cyber threats, it would be almost impossible not to point the finger at a rival nation. You can't talk, diplomacy is off the table, so what do? You start moving troops based on pure guesswork. And that's the scariest question of all, isn't it? How close would we actually come to war? With the entire world blind in death, just one little misunderstanding could spiral into a full-blown global conflict. Okay, but let's say we pulled back from that brink. The internet flickers back on. What does the world look like now, in the aftermath? This would be a time of reconnection and a whole lot of reflection. And getting everything back online, it wouldn't be like flipping a light switch. Oh no. It would be an absolute mess. You'd have servers totally out of sync, which means corrupted data, maybe even data that's lost forever. The economy would take weeks, maybe months to recover. And some companies, the ones that are purely digital, they might just be gone for good. So, what's the big lesson we'd learn from this whole nightmare? It all comes down to one idea: digital resilience. It's this concept that a society has to be able to function even during huge digital disruptions. We'd realize we need backup systems, local networks, things that can work without the global internet. This would become a top-tier national security priority, right up there with things like food security and energy independence. And there's this quote that just perfectly sums up what the legacy of something like this would be. The blackout wouldn't just be remembered as a global catastrophe, it would be seen as a profound collective awakening. An awakening to just how fragile our modern world really is. Which really leaves us with one last big question to think about. We've built our entire civilization on this invisible network. We've basically outsourced our memories, our conversations, our whole economy to it. So who are we really when all of that just stops?